All right. Looks like everything's good to go. Welcome back, everyone, to yet another Moonshire Monday. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. Very excited to be doing another one of these, and I haven't missed one. I'm actually very happy that I was able to get through so many of these so far, and I haven't missed a single week, as far as I know. So I'm excited to show off some more of the progress. I've been working more on the level generating stuff because, you know, the stuff that we see here comes from a JSON file, like variety.json. You define a bunch of blocks, and then using these blocks, kind of like a voxel grid, it's able to generate the level tiles that look like this. And this past week, I was able to implement different block types, different heights, and I was able to get some floating blocks so you can walk underneath of them. So I was showing some of those things off today. Are those new tiles? Yes, they are, kind of. I've been showing similar tiles to this for a while, but this is actually a new tile set that I developed over the week that fits into this new box scheme. Before, it was all built off of tiled and stuff, and actually I'm gonna go ahead and show those because it's kind of interesting to look at how I was using this tile set here before I switched, yeah, like this. So the way this tile set looks is very, very nice. I really like it. The problem that I had with this is that it was so difficult to work with. It was so difficult to put together these maps like this because, let me see if I can show this, how there was all these different layers that go into making it. Let me see if it... Okay, so there's this one, details and objects. So most of the tile set comes on this objects layer. And then I think this is probably no, what is this? Is this... There it is, elevation. So the way that I would construct these walls, it was very hacky is what I'm getting at, is that I had to put in individual tiles for the different spots around these edges, and it was so annoying to put together. So my new system is a lot more clean, and I'm going to show what the tile set actually looks like. It's a lot better. But before that, I'm going to go ahead and say hi to chat. I'm really, really happy to see so many folks stopping in. I'm seeing Baron and Wolf, Weltrill, Kemi, Arcled, Ender Astra, and Dusty Duck. Yolvin, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate all the support. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and show the tile set that I was talking about. This one, this new one. I might actually show a before and after because this tile set here is based off of a paid asset pack that I bought a long time ago. And then now I've made so many edits to it that it's kind of become its own thing. And this gate here, this is custom made. This is something that I commissioned. I think I originally commissioned Ellie to make the gate, and then I commissioned Tris Pixels to add the details and the designs and stuff to it. Really love how this gate turned out, so I'm excited to get that implemented as well. But let me pull up the tile set. Like I said, I might actually be able to use my recent files to pull this up. No, I actually don't. I've been working on so many tile sets, I'm not able to. So let me pull this up. I'm still organizing the way I want all of the tile sets to be organized in my files, but how I have it is I have the walls. So this is the brick wall, and then I have the cap. All of the blocks in the game are split up into 2 tile sets, and that's the magic sauce that makes all of this work so nicely, is that I split the tile sets up into 2. Because before, and I'm going to show my old tile sets as well because I have those. It's under Moonshire tiles. And I guess this is fine. And you know, when I look at this tile set all together, it kind of already feels like multiple tile sets. And oh my gosh, I got a donation! Enigmo says, greetings from Bulgaria. Thank you so much for the donation. And greetings to you from Bulgaria. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm trying to make a YouTube devlog. Do you have any tips? Definitely keep it short and simple at first, because the longer the video is, like you might have noticed that all of my recent videos have been kind of short, like 5-ish, 6 minutes. Even that is so much time to get implemented, to get a full video together. It's a lot of work, so just take it easy. Even if it's only 2 or 3 minutes, that is perfectly okay. The goal is just to make your videos better over time, so that like your first video might not be very good, but if you make a video every month and then you do that for a couple years, you're gonna get really good really fast. CG Kraz, hi, welcome in. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. I'm showing off some of the tile sets that I've been working on. So this tile set that I'm showing here, really love it. I think it's awesome. And it's something that I showed here in these. So this map is something that I show in a lot of my videos where like I walk through the town, like the blacksmith is over here. But this wall, it's always so difficult to get this wall built because there's so many different tiles that go into making it. And I would have to just like kind of go one by one. But now that I have this block system set up. So in the game, the way all of these like slabs are defined, it's defined using just kind of like a voxel grid. You can think of it kind of like a Minecraft space where I'm just putting down blocks. And I probably have some better examples to show off where if I go over into this, I have this list of levels over here that I've been putting together because I've been doing so much work on this level generating system. I have all these different levels with all these different JSON files that have different scenarios that I've been testing out. So like this one called camel.json is meant to show when you camel the different tile. I'll just go ahead and show it. I call it camel because I like to name everything in a dumb, I say cute. I name everything in a cute way where it's like, oh, I call it camel. Oh, I call it camel because it looks like this. It looks like camel humps. And that's why I named this map camel. But this is all that's here. This map just has these 5 slabs, if I pull this up again. So the way that I have it set up is this list of blocks. Think of it like Minecraft blocks. It really is like that. You have the X position of the grid, the Y position of the grid. The Z position is assumed to be 0, which is just the ground level. And then to help make it more concise, because, you know, if I had to have a different one of these like objects here and have a different object for every block, that would get annoying. In fact, it would probably look like one of these up here. Yeah, look at this. This is how my old maps looked. Excuse me. This is how the old maps looked, is that they were tiled maps. And then probably like half a year ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I re-implemented everything to be the level generator where it builds from these maps. But this first attempt wasn't that great. Obviously, like, look how long this file is. It's just so obnoxious where you have to define a different object per block. It's just so much wasted space. So instead what it does is you define a span. You have the X span and the Y span. Span just means like it extends in that direction a certain number of blocks. So when I say X2, Y22, that's the initial starting block position. X span is going to put an additional 2 blocks to the right, an additional 4 blocks down, and it's actually going to fill in that space like fully. And that's how you get the these filled in blocks. Each one of these only took one JSON object to create, even though it's constructed with a bunch of little blocks. So this one right here is a pretty good example of what a Z-span 1 block looks like, where it's just like 1 Z height, you know? I call it apex in my code. Apex refers to the unit of height, but it's more than that, because you know, when my player is standing up here on this ledge, I can show some more of these cool monitoring things where I can show the player's X, Y, Z in elevation. It's kind of squished on my stream setup, but you can still see the values up here in the corner. Oh, maybe I can pull it down like this a little bit. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So you can see what the elevation is. It says the elevation is 8. So why is my elevation 8 when I'm up on this ledge? It's 0 down here, and on this one it's 16. So that seems like an odd unit of measurement, the 8 pixels. And it's awkward to talk in terms of pixels always, because what if it's not always 16 by 16 tiles and using 8 increments? That's why I have the apex system. So throughout my code, I use this term called apex. In fact, I might even have an apex.lua. Yeah, I do. Apex is just meant to like convert this unit. A better way to describe it is 1 apex, 1 unit is what I'm standing on. This is 1 unit tall, and it equates to 8 pixels of elevation. And this one over here is 2 apex tall, 2 units of elevation tall, which equates to 16 pixels of elevation. So there's all these different terminologies that I invented just to make things a little bit cleaner in the code. Because, you know, when you say like how high up is the player, that could mean so many different things. It could mean you are one block high, one unit of block height up, or you could be 8 pixels of elevation up, or you could be Z. Notice that Z is 0. Z represents how far above the elevation you are. So I'm on elevation 8. That's 8 pixels up. Z is 0. That means I'm standing on the elevation, but when I jump, that's when the Z actually goes up. So all this to say is that it's just kind of like a big, complex series of blocks and terms and math and stuff. The Z-axis is usually only found in 3D games, but it's quite interesting that's in your game. Yeah, my most recent video talks a lot about that, how it really is a flat 2D game, and I can like show the colliders and the fields. These pink blocks represent where I can walk on, and then the green represents where you can't walk through, but you can still jump up over them because, like, yeah, like you were saying, there's a Z-axis now. There's a lot of physics code that I put custom into the game that kind of works off of the traditional 2D engine. I can go over to physics.lua. This file here, it really does wrap around Box 2D. That's the physics engine that Love 2D runs off of. And this file just takes all of those 2D principles and extends it farther with the like 2.5D concept where you have elevation and you have Z. When you search for just Z in the file, it's going to come up with things like freeze. It's hard to search for just the word Z. Another question, in JavaScript, the lang I'm currently learning as part of my college course, there are things called let and const. Are there any equivalents in Lua? That's an awesome question. And the simple answer is that every programming language has different ways to define what a variable is. So what you're talking about when we say let and const, those are variables, and it's going to be different from language to language. Like you were saying in JavaScript, you would say let Kyle equal awesome. So we have let is our keyword that tells us that Kyle is our variable, and it's being set equal to the string awesome. Now, I actually haven't used JavaScript for a while. Is JavaScript strongly typed, where you can just say let and then that creates the variable? Or do you have to say let string Kyle? Because many programming languages are strongly typed, such as like Java or C#. And sorry if I get like the capitalization or the syntax slightly off, but I'm just kind of describing the broad concepts that in some languages you wouldn't say let Kyle equal awesome. You would say like string Kyle equals awesome. And then this is the data type, and then this is the variable name, Kyle, and this is the data that the variable contains. This line right here is probably the most standard and typical way that you will see variables, especially in like an academic setting, because this is what Java looks like, is you have the data type, you have the name of the variable, you have the setter, you are setting it equal to this value, this data, this string is being assigned to here. But this is the big thing. With strongly typed languages, you have to make sure the data matches. I say string Kyle, but if I change this to int Kyle, this would just break the program. It wouldn't even run. So it just depends on your language. Now, earlier you said let and const because some languages have const Alex equals cool. And const is just a different form of this, where this is telling us that this is a constant, Alex. The big thing is that a variable is a piece of data that varies. It is able to change its value over time. So even though Kyle starts as awesome, later in the program we can change Kyle to uncool, where it starts as awesome, but later it changes to uncool. And that's because it's a variable. Variables vary and their data varies. But if it's a constant, that data does not vary. If you define a variable as a constant, you cannot set Alex to uncool. That is just not possible. It's just not possible when it is a constant. So if your programming language supports constants, which presumably JavaScript does, then that's the difference, is that in many cases, you will have data that will never change. And in order to ensure that it never changes, you would want to define it as const, such as like, what's a good example? Like const freeze temp equals 32, because I use the American freezing system, but water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And rather than putting the number 32 around my code, it's better to say freeze temp, because what if we suddenly decide to change everything over to Celsius, and then I don't want to have to change all these 32s to zeros throughout my code. I can just keep it at freeze temp, and then we know that this is the one true source of truth, and this value is never going to change. Like the Celsius and Fahrenheit system has been pretty stone cold set for quite a long time. Because Kyle's pretty cool. I am pretty cool. I like to think so. What's the equivalent of classes in Lua? I already forgot. Well, there really isn't, because Lua is not an object-oriented language. Classes is a data type, kind of like a string. And in fact, when we're talking about classes in Java, a string is a class. What a class is, it's an object type. So in my game, we can still talk about object-oriented programming with my game, because even though Lua is not an object-oriented language, you can still use tables in a way that like match object-oriented design, and I can still talk about object-orientedness in this context. So like, let's talk about the mobs. I talked about this in my most recent video as well, the z-axis stuff, where the vessel inherits into the mobs, which inherits into, you know, other stuff, you know. That's how all of this is set up. And the way that I do this in Lua specifically is the class is the type, and then you're able to create other classes based off of that type. And in this case, we have the mob type, and then we have like the hero or the slime. These are different types of mobs that we have in the game, but these are both derived from mob. It's like a top-down structure. And the mob is derived from a different object called vessel. So vessel is like a physics body that behaves with the physics environment in a really neat way, but vessel itself is kind of derived from physics, which creates this concept called collider, which there's so many cases of collider in this file. There's 174. I can't find the initialization function very easily, but it's in here. So the collider is the top level, essentially. Well, physics is the top level, then collider, then vessel, then mob, then slime, for example. And the reason why it's set up like that, and I might actually pull up that visual aid that I showed in the most recent video, because it's a really good example, I think, where it shows the tree of different things that feed into each other. Here it is. It's very big. But this is the whole idea behind classes and object-oriented design, is that when you have a bunch of code here in Vessel, and then these other types are derived from Vessel, now I can just keep a bunch of code here in Vessel, and then now everything in the game has access to it. This is a very big file. It's over 1,000 lines long. There's a lot of logic that goes into like existing in this physical space. Do I know about Isle of Goblin? Yeah, I do. I watch all of those videos. Sorry, I'm just kind of jumping back and forth between chat. But having this file here is really nice that it just feeds into all the other files. So even though all this code for Vessel and collisions and stuff is in Vessel, the mob is able to utilize it just as well as everything else. And same with the props, because I have the prop file. The prop has its own Vessel here. I know, again, there's 108 instances of the word Vessel, but Vessel args. When the prop is being created, we create this argument table of Vessel args, and then we pass that into this function here, prop.vessel equals vessel new. So to answer the earlier question about how do you do classes in Lua, and that's an awesome question, because this isn't an object-oriented language. There isn't a class like structure built in. Instead, we just have tables and functions. And the way that I do object-orientedness is like this. I have prop.vessel. So in this case, Vessel is like the parent. Vessel is a higher level object, like in my chart here. Vessel is above here, mob is down here, and mob has a property, mob.vessel. It's kind of like an it really is more like an upward facing arrow, except the mob is utilizing the vessel. That's why the arrow points downward. But technically, you know, in this case, the reference is pointing upward towards the vessel. So the prop is able to say prop.vessel.collider, and now prop is able to use all the collider stuff. It's very, very convenient, very clean. I love that. Do I do any marketing other than making devlogs, YouTube Shorts, and Discord? No, not really. Google gives short info when I search it. I don't really do any of that stuff for marketing because I don't really know how to answer, because it's more that I'm just focused on developing the game, and then the YouTube channel is just more for building community. In terms of marketing, I understand that's a very important aspect when it comes to game development, is marketing the game, but I'm not really at the point where I need to start marketing, and right now I'm more of like building the community to help me with like shaping where the development goes. There are lots of options for how you advertise, because like you said, you can do Google ads or work on SEO. I do have a website. I have like my Udemy courses as well, and all those things kind of feed into the same ecosystem. But in terms of advertising, I don't really do anything like that. Marketing is all just through my social media and stuff, like posting videos and devlogs and things like those. But I have a hard time making that recommendation, because really all of this work that I've been putting into social media and YouTube and stuff, I wouldn't say that those have made the game better. Those have helped with my community, and I really love streaming and working on the game, but the game really does need to be at a farther along point before like it needs to be marketed, because I don't have a product for sale yet. That's the big thing, I think, is if we're talking about marketing, that implies that you have a product for sale, because if you're marketing, it costs money to market things. It costs money to advertise, and it costs money to spend time working on marketing. Like if I spend my day creating marketing materials, that's a day that I didn't spend working on the game, and that costs money, that costs time. So it's really worth like weighing those options. And when I consider that like I don't actually have a product that I'm marketing people towards that I would be selling, I guess the Udemy courses, but I'm not really pushing those right now. That's what it comes down to, is that if I have a product that I'm selling for money, where marketing would lead people to it, that would lead more sales to offset the cost of marketing, then sure, I would do that. But I'm not really at that point. And my harsh truth is that I think it's a very, very, very long time for anyone to reach that point. I think that it takes a lot of years of development time before you can build up the skills and progress that can even give you a product that's worth marketing. I don't know if that applies to everyone though. That applies to me. So that's my general advice, is that because it feels like marketing hasn't really been beneficial to me yet, it will. I'll have a product for sale at some point, and then I'll want to market it, and I'll want to get the word out. Actually, I have a good example. ChallaChat. On Steam, there's my app called ChallaChat, and you can look it up on Steam. I'm going to go ahead and search for it, ChallaChat. So if you go on Steam and you search for ChallaChat, you can see my app. And I'm very, very proud of ChallaChat. I think it's amazing, and I use it. I'm using it right now. I'm using it as part of the stream. It's playing the music, and it's doing like the little jam feature where you can do that. It has all these features that I'm really, really proud of, and I think that this app is amazing. But I haven't marketed it at all. It has 4 user reviews, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very happy that people are using it. I'm happy that people downloaded it and gave it a shot. But at the same time, I haven't marketed it at all. I haven't made any videos about it. I haven't spent time like getting other people to use it. But I made it, and at some point, I'm going to reach the time, or like the reason I haven't marketed it is because, like you said, it's free. Well, not like you said. Yovin mentioned, is it free? Yes, it is free. It's free to download, it's free to use, and it always will be. I don't plan to monetize like selling this product. But marketing it with money, that wouldn't be worth my time doing, because that would just cost money. Instead, I just wanted to get it out there, and then over time, I'll make videos when I have time to do so. But right now I'm working on my game. And I'll probably try to get more streamers to use it, but also I'm doing testing on it myself. If I marketed ChallaChat to people and got more people using it, what happens when they encounter that gift sub bug that we encountered last week? Because last week, Allfather gave a super generous donation, which I'm super happy about. He gave a generous donation of 10 gift memberships to the channel. I'm so proud, so happy about that. But ChallaChat, my app, was bugging out. It would kept like refreshing the page. It kept re-triggering the alert, and it just screwed up everything. It glitched very, very badly. Yes, exactly. And thankfully, I'm able to fix that. But if I had marketed this app early and people were using it already, that could have happened to lots of people. They would have gotten annoyed, and I would have gotten a bunch of angry emails, and maybe they would have stopped using it altogether because they wouldn't want to risk using some like new app that's very underdeveloped. It's free, and then like maybe I should use something more established and reliable. Why the buggy ChallaChat? Well, I mean, it just bugs happen once in a while. It's hard to avoid that, but the more stable or the more reliable thing is when you first release a product and I'm the only person testing it, that's not enough testing. That's very little testing. Like, I'm able to find bugs, but it has to go through the ringer before all of the bugs become apparent. And so it's okay for me to spend time just casually streaming and finding the bugs as they come in. I can't catch all of the bugs beforehand. I can do my best, and I have done my best. I think it behaves really well. But this isn't the only bug that I've experienced, and there's been other bugs, and there's been other things that I've fixed. Was I able to fix the glitch? Yes, I was. But I haven't been able to test it yet because I need to wait for someone to gift memberships. Hint, hint. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that. No one out there has to. But as soon as someone does, that's going to be our validation moment. Is the code of ChallaChat open? Yes, it is. It is open source, and it is on GitHub. You can go to github.com, and it's ChallaChat. So we'll go ahead and show that. So yep, all the code is open source, and the releases get posted. The way I set this up is so awesome. I'm so proud of this repo because it's taught me a lot about clean builds and doing automated builds through GitHub Actions. Because the way I used to do my game releases for MOONSHIRE is I would manually package them myself, and I would zip them up and then upload them manually. But now I have these GitHub Actions where it's able to run these full release it's able to build Windows, build Mac, build Linux, and post the release. So if I go to the release, it posts this page here where it shows the different check-ins that got fixed since the last release, and then it has all of the binaries. It's very clean. I really love this. So I'm going to implement something similar for MOONSHIRE. MOONSHIRE's source code isn't open source, but I probably will be able to utilize something similar to this. Do I ever have unfixable bugs? How do you deal with them? Unfixable bugs. If there's an unfixable bug, that means something is fundamentally wrong with the idea or the implementation. When I was first learning, when I was in the first maybe 5 years of programming, when you're still starting out, first few games, you will run into unfixable bugs because you don't know how to fix everything yet. Unfixable, there's two definitions of unfixable. Unfixable by you and unfixable by anybody. If something is unfixable by anybody, then there's something fundamentally wrong with your implementation. But when you're first starting out, you don't know. You don't know if it's fundamentally wrong or if it's a skill issue. Because you're starting out. You don't know what you don't know. So that's the hard part. These days, I don't run into unfixable bugs anymore. That hasn't happened. My first games were pretty messy and had some of those unfixable bugs because I didn't know how to fix them. Yeah, is that that's bound to happen. But also, if there are unfixable bugs that no one can fix. For example, if I tried to create an MMORPG where you had 1 million players all in the same room, there would be performance issues, and that would be a bug. The bug is the performance sucks. How do you fix that? there is no fix. There is no fix for that bug. If you're having an MMO where you have 1 million players in the same instance, it's not gonna work. Just because, or whatever the number is. If eventually we're gonna scale up with like cloud where it can support 1 million players in the same instance, but right now we can't. But you know, in the future, whatever that number is, be it 1 billion, maybe we reach the super future where everybody on Earth is online and playing Moonshire. I can't wait. It's gonna be awesome. But anyway, what was I talking about? It probably wasn't anything interesting. Oh, I'm gonna show more of the progress on the level editor I made. And by the way, I'm calling it level editor because level editor means 2 things. It means my ability to make levels using JSON, and it also means the ability for players to create levels in-game that then translate to JSON, that then translate back into levels. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. That's the goal, is that in the game, you'll be able to like set down different pieces of the level. It'll save its data to this format, this JSON format, and then you can like share that file with people. That's how mods are gonna be. That's how I want mods to be, at least. I think Steam mods are zip files, but you can zip a JSON, and then maybe bigger mods can be a collection of JSON files. After you beat Moonshire, will the player get a level editor? I don't want to spoil anything, but I want a level editor to be a part of the experience. Yes, that's what I want. Because I think player-generated content is going to be a really big selling point for this. I'm so proud of how this level editor is coming along that I want other people to use it. And actually, it's more than that. I think other people will be able to use it in a way that's better than me. I think I can make good levels with this level editor, but I think other people will be able to make better levels than me. And then I'll be able to commission other people to help me. I'll be able to, like, get more content created, and it'll be better content because the tooling supports it. Moonshire quite like a Souls-like game. In a way, yeah, because, you know, it has the dodge and it has the, you know, other fast-paced, difficult combat. But in other ways, it's kind of like a combination of all my favorites because I'm a big fan of Zelda. I like the Zelda formula of progression, but I do like the Dark Souls type of combat where it's fast-paced and really tight and dodge-focused, or you have to really understand the patterns of your enemy. I love that stuff. But then I also love the movement of Mario. So then I try to combine it all together into one lovely little package where we play as a Mario flipping Zelda man. That's the goal. Add fake electricity system like Redstone. Yeah, I could do something like that. I'm thinking ahead about the physics elements system. You know, in Breath of the Wild, there's a physics system with the elements, how you can set a field on fire and the fire will spread, and then the fire will create an updraft, and then you can sail in the updraft to get some height. That's pretty cool. That stuff is pretty neat. Mario flipping Zelda man, that's the mantra of this game. Actually, no, I probably can't say that. That's using too many proprietary words. I love to do because I code on a phone and didn't have to tile set, are a good way of making levels, so I learned Godot. Interesting, nice. Yeah, whatever tools you're able to use. I always say that, like, pretty much every engine, every framework is able to make a good game, so use whatever works for you. Read the message I sent you on Discord. If you sent it during stream, I did. I think I responded to you last night. I responded to you last night. Maybe you sent another message I didn't see this morning. But what I was going to show is some of these other ones. So I want to show Float. This is one of the big ones that I did over the past week. If I open up Float. What this is it's a floating platform. So you can walk underneath of it. And you can still go on top of it. If I jump up here, it still works. It has physics to it. It works really well. It still has a ways to go though, because like the shadow I think is kind of awkward the way it's shaped. The perspective is a little hard to understand, but it's really flexible now. So let me show more of that, and you can make You can make all kinds of... Let's see, sorry, give me a second. Let's just put some more in this map. I'm gonna put this at 14. Ender Aster, I already responded to you, and if I didn't, then I'll check after stream. Let's make this one Z2, and we'll make the Z span higher. I want this one to be taller one, so this is gonna be like a tall floating platform. Where is that guy? There it is. I can still walk on. That's so cool. And look, like it looks like my head like hits it. That's actually a weird thought. Is what happens when? Oh, the physics of it is so crazy. What happens when I like jump? Oh wow, that's so cool. I can't believe that works so well. You know, I know that visually it's kind of hard to comprehend what we're looking at here, but what this is, it's a floating tall block, and it's floating above the air. And if I jump high enough, I can touch it like that. Did I ever try making a game in Roblox? No, I haven't. What happens if I hit the ceiling? That's the weird part, is that it seems like right now it doesn't actually detect the ceiling, where I can jump up into it. So like you can kind of see my head clip into it slightly, like right here it's here, and then I walk forward and it clips. That's fine, that's not a big deal. But when I jump, I like really jump into it. Yeah, that's strange. Whoa, that's weird. Like, look at this. You can, like, jump into the wall. It's like Harry Potter. If I jump high enough, though, yeah, I get pushed out. If I jump high enough. Yeah, that's kind of weird. The next update's gonna be fire. Yeah, I hope so. That's a little weird. Yeah, it is a little bit weird. That's just a Zelda game. I mean, I get a lot of inspiration from it. Mario 64 shifting sand lane entrance. Interesting. I actually have to remember what that looks like. Well, it starts off like on the side. Secret levels of Moonshire coming soon. Totally. I mean, I don't really want to have... One thing I'm cautious about is I played through Elden Ring, and one thing about Elden Ring... Oh, and Silksong is you have to smack a lot of walls to, like, discover the fake walls. Elden Ring does a better job of, like, signaling where those are. But in Silksong, I felt like I had to... It's a level where you go through a random wall in the basement. Oh yeah, it's just like a fake flat wall, and you walk into it, and it's just the sand level. Yeah, I remember that. Must be only colliding when you're going upward. I think it's that my Z height is not quite right. I think that so. Let me fill colliders. I think that the reason why is because this is how the collider is shaped. And if you look at the shape of this, like this circle that takes up the player's collider, you might ask, like, why did I shape it like this? Like the player's head is exposed. Why is the player's head, why isn't this extended upwards to encapsulate the whole player? And that's just because of the perspective that the game has. If the collider went all the way up to the tip top of the player, I wouldn't be able to have this overlap with the wall. Like, see here. Look how I'm standing up against this wall like this. If my collider went all the way up to the very tip top of the player's sprite, I would only be able to walk up to, like, right here. Right here. I wouldn't actually be able to walk up against the wall because my collider would be so tall. So that's why I have the collider so short, because visually it complements the Z-axis. Now, the problem with this is we can't see the Z-axis at all. Like, all that we see here is a flat octagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, octagon. I would be really embarrassed if I said the wrong shape, but we have this flat shape here, but it's more than just a flat shape because we have our Z-axis now. Like, when I jump up, this is the best example. When I jump up in the air, the collider stays here on the floor because this is my XY axis right here. But the Z-axis you can see on the player. The player is moving up along the Z-axis, but it's like flattened onto the Y-axis. It's merged. That's why it's like this. And So the collider here is a 2D shape, but it represents a 3D object. There is a Z-axis that this shape has, but I can't see it. I can't see it. I like the leg hop. I do too. I love the leg hop. I spent a lot of time on that sprite to make sure it was good. He's so happy. Yeah, he looks like he's jumping for joy. Nard, hi, welcome in. Hiru and Yolvin, thank you so much for being here. So anyway, long story short, the reason why I started talking about this is that's why we're seeing these weird issues with the wall here. Is since my collider is kind of short, like this is a short little collider, it is causing some weirdness with the wall, and I think the main weirdness is that the Z height, the invisible Z height, is not right. T game dev to see Z axis. Well, that's what I mean. Is I think that I will need to put in some kind of something or other. You know, the Z axis here. Let me draw it. I'm gonna go ahead and do one of my famous good paintings, and I'm gonna demonstrate what we could do to show what this looks like. So right now we have. Let's say that this is my collider. Actually, I'm going to use clean shapes. Oh, check it out. I have a... I'll just use this. No. I want to use a triangle. Let's say that we have a triangle collider, because that's going to be easier to draw the perspective on. Let's say I have a triangle. My whole issue is that right now, this triangle exists in a 3D space, but it's just a 2D shape. So really in the game, the triangle would have some height to it. It would look a little bit more, come on. It would look a little bit more like this, where I draw in like this, and then it's like an elevated triangle. It's a triangular prism, essentially. Okay, so it's like an elevated triangle. Maybe I should draw just like a regular... So if this is the player's collider here, technically it's going to extend upward more and be more of a cylinder shape. But right now I'm not drawing a cylinder. Right now the game is only drawing the base of the cylinder. Wouldn't it be easier to code as 2D or as 3D objects? Technically, yeah, but I'm used to 2D games, and honestly, I'm fine with coding all this stuff custom. I actually like it. And crazy drawings, man. Yeah, I know. They're very rough. But what I'm getting at is right now we're drawing the green. We're drawing the green base, and the next step to making this visible, making the Z-axis visible, is drawing the orange part, drawing the upper elevated part. That's not a real table. That's not a real table. Oh, are you talking about the one that I am holding? No, it's an ironing board, if that's what you're referring to. Is Lewis Collider a capsule collider? That's an awesome question, because that's what I would like it to be. If I'm being honest, that's what I would like the collider to be. But no, it's actually this shape extended up. I'm trying to think of a way to explain it. Pretend like this shape, this octagon, was a hole, and then you squished Play-Doh through it. Like you squished some bread dough through it, and then it created a shape. And that shape would be like in an elongated version of this. It would just be stretched out. It's kind of just like a tall pillar up to his head, but you can't see it. I really wish I could show it better. You see my play button? Yep, it's behind me. I would love to have a capsule shape, just because it would add that curvature. Because right now all of the colliders are like this. I mean, like that shape is really ugly, but everything is just whatever shape you see on screen. The collider is just this exact same shape shifted upwards. Ooh, my stomach is rumbling. I'm hungry. shift upwards like this in 3D space, you know, and then turned into like a pillar. So this drawing that I drew here, this is what the player's collider actually looks like. It's an octagonal prism. Isn't a capsule just a 3D ellipse? I think it's more than that because it does have some straight. Well, let's look it up. Let's look up specifically what a capsule collider. Wow, look at that. It's perfect. That's a perfect representation. That's exactly what I wanted to show. It's actually, yeah, it's a rectangle with 2 circles on the edges. So it's not an ellipse. An ellipse is actually it's a hockey ring. Nice. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I would love for my collider to be more like this, where it has curved top and curved bottom, because look at the player's feet. Like, well, I guess it does kind of curve in. I don't know. I had to think a little bit more about this because, you know, this is a flat character flattened onto a flat surface, and then we're talking about 3D objects projected onto them. It's a little bit hard to visualize. It's a 3D object that's projected onto a flat surface, though. Like, this drawing is quite accurate to what the hitbox looks like, because I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. What was I gonna say? Oh, like I think that picture the player inside of this hitbox is the feet are down here. And it would be nice if it like curved in, you know? It would be nice if there was that curvature at the bottom rather than like pointed edges. I want it to curve in towards the bottom. And same with the head. See? I want it to look like that. And use it as game art. I don't know if it would look too good. So that's why I want a capsule, and I don't want this octagonal prism. So for collision, do you just do the center point or the bottom of the bounding box? The position, I tend to use the middle point of the bottom box. So when I say the player's position, here's a good way to decide where is the position, like the XY position. You know, earlier I was showing the monitor for player XY. And you know, as I move around, the value changes. This point represents the shadow. The shadow is probably always going to be the best way to figure out what is the point. What's the point of all this? It's the center point of this. Actually, it's not the center point of the collider. It's offset downwards. I think that the center point, yeah, look at the shadow here. The shadow is offset downwards. I think I can actually show this in code, is that if I go to hero, let's find where that offset value is. OY factor, that's it. So by default, the OY factor, is that OY factor additive or is it just 0.4? I'm trying to remember if it's additive or if is this adding an extra 0.4 or is it, give me one second, I'm trying to remember if it's adding extra 0.4. I think it's adding an extra 0.4. So when I have 0.4 here, it makes the OY 0.9, meaning the point is 90% down the sprite, or down the shape. So, where do I have paint at? Here it is. So, when I say that it's 90% down the sprite, by default, it puts the point here in the middle. But since I added an extra 0.4 to it, it puts it down an extra 40% down to here. Or like down to here. So that's why when we look at the player's collider, the point is like right here where his feet are, and the shadow is directly around that point. How hard do you think it is to make Love 2D interact with websites, like making a follower count of a YouTube channel? It is generally not easy. It's not built for that, long story short. You can do it though. Because with Lua, you can make API calls, you can, and that's it. Like, if you can make API calls and you can make calls to a server or whatever, you can do that. And there are some examples I can probably show, actually. Steam. This isn't a perfect example, but this is like a step in the right direction. So with Steam, I have a lot of these network connection things where it like attempts to call an API endpoint and receives a response to see if a connection was made. And the way that this all is handled, it does this through Lua Steam, luasteam.dll. So there's this binary package that helps with like bridging that gap. Allfather, thank you so much. Sent 1 ChallaChat gift membership. Thank you so much for the gift membership. And listen to that. It's fixed. I fixed the bug. Thank you so much for helping me with testing that, Allfather. I appreciate the gift membership. It is fixed. For those who don't know, last week, Allfather gave a very, very kind gift membership donation, and it like broke the whole streaming overlay. It caused a weird loop to happen, but it's fixed. I was able to fix it. So thank you again for doing that. Do I like do I like iPad babies? I don't even know how to answer that question. I sympathize with them. I think that's probably all I'll say. But anyway, back to this, is that the point of all of this is that the point is 90% down the collider down here at the player's feet, and the shadow surrounds that. And pretty much for everything, I think that if I mobs, target, follow, slime. The slime has different proportions for this. And I can pull up the code for that as well. Slime. OY factor is 0.2. So that means instead of being 90% down, it's 70% down. So that's why, like, it's a little bit more, the shadow is still offset downwards. You can see that it's offset downwards, but not as much as the players. The shadow is the key. That's how you can pretty much always tell what is the true point of the object. Mr. Satan received the gift sub, the gift membership. That's awesome. I'm happy that it works. So I'm sure you all are aware, but like, you know, streaming on YouTube, I wouldn't say it's new. It's been around for a long time, but I think that streaming on Twitch is probably more established. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing here with like memberships, this is kind of a newer, experimental, we'll say. And I really appreciate all you guys being here and helping me experiment with this and helping me with ChallaChat and figuring all these things out, because I'm still new to streaming. A lot of us are still new to like YouTube streaming, YouTube streams in general. Like I'm still new to it. Buffalo Jake, hi, welcome in. Happy Moonshire Monday. Thank you. Getting a lot of jams for this one, and I'm a big fan of the Undertale soundtrack. Oh yeah, the pathing's not gonna work. I showed an earlier video where like they were able to jump up onto the ledges, but it's not gonna work right now. I love my little slime pet. And good, he can walk under the floating platform too. Butterfly, welcome in. Y frameworks and engines flip the y-axis. Oh, you know, I've actually never really wondered. I've never really thought about that, because, like you said, when I used GameMaker, y when y increases, you would go up. But look, in my case, when I go up, y is decreasing. So what's up with that? That's kind of weird. It's kind of unusual. And I remember thinking that was strange too, but now I prefer it that way. I actually like that y increases downwards. That works for my brain. GameMaker is just weird. I don't think it's a GameMaker thing. I think a lot of engines are doing that. So what I actually want to do is I want to look it up. And we're gonna ask an AI. We're gonna say, many game engines frameworks have the y-axis increasing upwards, and others have it going downwards? Downwards. How many, which ones have it up versus down, and why? So let's see what it says. Just at the top right corner, top left corner has 0, 0. Yes. Is that in general, and that's the same with all the sprites too, is that when I have all these sprites in the game, like any of these sprites, for example, by default, when you're drawing it, the upper left corner is 0.00, and then the points go to the right and down. That's typically the way it goes. Let me check how that is coming along. It's one of those classics, why is it like this course of game development that can cause a massive headache. Cartesian tradition. Follows a standard Cartesian coordinate system we all learn in geometry class. That's what I always say, is that in math classes, we always learn that y goes up, which is why that it's a little bit weird to go to the screen CRT tradition. The old cathode ray tube monitors work. The electron beam scanned the screen from top left corner, moving left to right, and then row by row downward. Consequently, 0, 0 was fixed at the top left. I didn't know that. That's amazing. I had no idea. Which engines use what? Unity is up. Unreal. Godot 2D is down. Godot 3D is up. Wow. Yeah, it really is a mixed bag. Look at that. You know, in the context of 3D, up means something different. I would say that this 2D, like, I'd say that Godot having down 2D with the Y direction, I think this is the most telling thing, is that even when you switch to Godot 3D, up switches back to Y goes up, and then when you switch to 2D, Y goes down. I think that demonstrates just what Y kind of represents in these different contexts. The 3D complications, Z up versus Y. Exactly. Is that Z means up in 3D, but in 2D, Y means up, up, up. But Z also means up, so that's why it's weird. Y. Yeah, Y in general. Let's see what it said. Pro tip, if you're working in an engine where Y is down like Godot 2D, but you prefer the math to work correctly, up is positive, you'll often find yourself multiplying your vertical movement vectors by -1. It's a rite of passage for every game dev. I actually just internalized that Y increasing means down, but I understand why a lot of people would not like that. Because it's kind of hard to conceptualize, you know. To get used to the angle calculation with -Y. Oh, that's a big one. In fact, I still don't think I've fully wrapped my head around that, because that's such a good call out. Buffalo Jake is the unit circle. Unit circle. Is the biggest problem with Y being flipped. The biggest problem is that it screws up the unit circle. I'm so used to the angle increasing like this, like counterclockwise. But when mass flashbang, I'm sorry about that, I forgot. Yeah, it's totally like white and bright. But when the Y is inverted, it gets really confusing. So what we're looking at is it's probably too complex of a visualization. Because there was a better one. This is a better visualization. What angle does T represent? Yeah, this is a better example. Sorry about that. I showed the unit circle because like the other unit circle makes more sense. But when the Y direction is flipped, this arrow direction is flipped. So right now we're looking at like a 50-degree angle or whatever. But this is a 50-degree angle in our known Cartesian math system. But in the flipped version, in the game development version, this arrow actually goes the other direction. So 60 degrees goes down this way. This is a 60-degree angle down here. and it's less of a this is a 60-degree angle. It's more of a you rotate things in a positive or negative direction. So when you rotate something in the positive direction in a Cartesian grid, it rotates counterclockwise. But when you rotate it clockwise, but when you rotated it in a positive direction in the the math CRT, the tech, whatever they called it, the what did they call it? Y down screen / CRT tradition. Okay. Then it would go the opposite direction. So that's something that I still kind of flip myself up. I get mixed up doing that. Doing vector calculations and just adding in until it works. I see what you mean. Thanks for reminding me I have a math exam. Sorry. Oh man, I remember being in school. I hated it. Well, I didn't hate it. I was actually pretty good at it. I was pretty good at it. He was using AI slop. I don't really think so. If you're talking about like this AI response, I mean, I'm curious to hear how someone would do a better response than that. But let's see. School was fun, but until math. I liked school. I liked school because it's very structured and they challenge you in all the right ways, but it's not going to be the right thing for everyone. Everyone has different levels of skill and efficiency that not everyone's able to be catered to in just the right way. In my case, I had really good teachers. I felt like I got a good school experience, but I know that it's not going to apply to everyone. And also not everyone's interested in math like I was. Math is the most fun thing in school. I also agree. That was my favorite class as well. Math was peak until X and Y appeared. I feel like that's when it gets fun. When X and Y appears, that's when you can start thinking about game development. Because, I don't really see a player walking around. I just see an X and a Y position. And this is the same stuff as your math classes. AI should be used as extra help. In general, yeah. Oh, excuse me. I saw a video of a person making a Roblox game and he was recruiting people, had a strict no AI policy. Listen, I understand the different perspectives on this because AI is a very quickly emerging thing and I understand why people are uncomfortable with it. I'm patient with people. I'm patient with people who dislike it. I'm patient with people who really like it. Personally, I see the appeal. I see how it's useful and it's useful for my workflow. It's useful for getting clear responses like this, but I also understand that it kind of is infringing on jobs. It's infringing on human creativity. There's some environmental concerns. I get that. There's room for growth is what I'm saying. Right now in history, we're kind of at the worst phase of it. It's the most inefficient, it's the most inaccurate, it's the most environmentally impactful. It's only going to get better from here. Hopefully, who knows? AI is a tool, not a person that a program. Well, I mean, yeah. I also used to be a Roblox developer for 3 or 4 years ago, but I left because the age verification thing. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that makes sense. I care about privacy. The internet is changing a lot, and what you're experiencing is pretty similar to what I was experiencing with my app. My app on the App Store and the Google Play Store got removed because there's evolving policies involving privacy. Now, these days, every app on the App Store, as far as I know, all of them on Google Play, have to have the developer's information displayed. And this is good for consumers because now it's less likely that there's going to be scammers using fake information and stuff. If you're putting your real developer information online, that gives you more liability. But it's bad for developers because now me, as an app developer, I have to expose my name, my phone number, my email address, and my physical address. That's a lot of information to be showing online. And I agree with you. It's sad that privacy is kind of disintegrating off of online, but it's all in the name of safety, and there are safety benefits. Having that information displayed on the App Store gives consumers a little bit more confidence in their purchases or whatever it is that they're downloading, because if someone's putting their physical address and you can look it up and stuff, that gives you a little bit of confidence that this isn't just some scammer trying to steal your stuff. And exposing your personal info can become a problem. Exactly. That's what I mean, is that it's good for consumers who are downloading apps, but it's not good for the developers who are putting their apps online because now they have to have their information available. And you know, if you're running a business, your information is already going to be available, but having it front and center on the App Store page is that's very rough. How do you keep yourself motivated? I wouldn't say I do a very good job of keeping myself motivated, but I do a good job of keeping myself disciplined. I do work on my game every single day, even if I don't feel like it. So motivation is fleeting. I'm with you. It's hard to get motivated sometimes, but as long as you force yourself to sit down and do a little bit of work every day, sometimes you'll feel motivated, sometimes you won't, but you'll always get work done. And that way you'll eventually reach your goal, and that's the main thing. How do your X and Y positions have decimal places? Oh, isn't that a cool thing, right? The interpixel positions is that what you're seeing is proof that the game is not pixel art. What we are seeing is the game is blown up. Like this window here this is like a 4K window or something like that. You know, I guess my monitor is D-res to like 1440p, but this window here, let's say that this window that I have, that I'm holding right here, is 1080p, meaning it's 1920 pixels wide and 1080 pixels tall. Okay, that means it's HD. There are way more pixels. I'm not explaining this very well. Look at all these pixels. This is what happens when you zoom in really far on an image. So all of these pixels that we see in the game, it looks very clean. It looks very clean on our high res monitor. But this, like the tip of the spear is 1 pixel. But if I pull it up in Paint, it's way more than 1 pixel. It's 13 by 13 pixels. So it's taken 1 pixel and it's blown it up to be 13 or 14 times bigger. And that's why in the game you have sub-pixel movement. Because there are no... because this isn't pixels. This isn't pixel art. All this pixel art is being blown up to be much bigger than 1 pixel. And that's why it works like that. Banger. Oh yeah, I love the song. Personally, I hate opacity effects in pixel art games. I always try to do dithering. However, I see why people would choose opacity for things like shadows, like a specific art style. I understand that take, but in general, I agree with you. My policy is, if you can make it look good with true pixel art, you should. I agree with you. But I think that, like you're saying, there are some situations where I think when you like cheat it, when you cheat the system, and like these shadows here, if you do true pixel art, look at how my shadow overlaps with these shadows. How the color stacks on each other. If it was true pixel art, you couldn't do that. Or you would have to use shaders, which again, that is also not true pixel art, because what's your stance on using a library versus making the functionality yourself? Use a library when you can. I'd say use a library when it's available. But I also like making my own libraries. Like I've written a lot of my own custom code, and I like writing libraries. But you always have to think, what is your goal? Is your goal to create a game? Then use all the tools at your disposal. Is your goal to learn the ins and outs of how a game is made? Then you can go ahead and make it yourself. Just know it'll take longer, and the end goal, the end result, might not be as clean as if you use someone else's working product. That's what I mean. But the person who challenges themselves is going to learn more. So if your goal is to learn, then you should challenge yourself. But if your goal is to just get a final product that's finished, that works, which honestly, if you're making a game, that should be your goal, then use every tool that you can. I do want you to learn, though. And that's the thing, is that there's a balance. Like, I shouldn't actually say that. I want people to learn. I want people to challenge themselves more than anything. But I don't want people to get so hung up on reinventing the wheel, on building every aspect of the game, to where the game doesn't actually get completed, you know. But like everything, the answer is somewhere in the middle. I like the Dragon Quest remakes where they use pixels and 3D lighting. I think, the Dragon Quest remakes. The recent ones. Okay, I remember those, because those have the ones where you can like flip back and forth between the 2D view and the 3D view. That's really cool. I like how that looks too. Did I hire people to make your game? No, I made it all myself. I did commission some artists. I have some help, like from Wolf with testing and moderating. I have an illustrator that I have help with. And so I commission lots of folks to help with different parts of the process. But it is pretty much me doing 99.9% of the work, and I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like if you're using something like Love, the goal is to challenge yourself. That's how it is for me currently. I'd say you're right. I'd say that in a way you're right. Because if my goal was just to get a game done, then it would make sense to use someone else's engine that's already ready. It wouldn't make sense for me to spend all this time writing this code engine. So like all of these files here, quite literally every one of these files, is a file that I would not have needed to write if I was using a more fleshed out engine. And so why would I spend time doing all this when it already exists somewhere else? And really, it just comes down to preference. It comes down to what you like to do and what you want to get out of it. I do want to reach the finish line for this game, but I also want to enjoy it. So doing it in a way that I like is very important to me. I love the videos of people figuring out complex problems for games. However, I enjoy the process of building rather than difficult problem solving. Yeah, I understand that too. Making a game with 3 other people is our first game 2 takes care of me, and the other one takes care of coding. Do you have any tips? 2 takes care of me. I don't think I understand what you mean by that question. That reminds me of Super Paper Mario's gimmick, having a game where you can switch from side-scroller into 3D is really cool. That is really cool. And also, I love that game. That is a really, really cool concept. That it's a platformer that you switch perspectives. And it's just... And actually, the funny thing is that the perspective switching is kind of a minor aspect. You don't do that too often. You only do it with Mario as well. Do you have a vampire-like enemy to like you to survive at the shadows, like if you go to the light? Oh, that's a cool idea. Since the game has shadows, you could make the shadows into a game mechanic. That's a cool idea. I think there's potential with that. Some kind, it could be a stealth thing too. Like you have to stay in the shadows if you want to remain hidden. And if you come out of the shadows, you're gonna get hit. Minecraft skeletons. I mean, there are skeletons. Oh wow, that looks so weird. Yeah, I need to fix the Z height thing really bad, because it looks so strange when I just fly through the wall like this, like Harry Potter. One of the people who inspired me to make games and find my big hobby. A big thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you for saying that. Bethlehem Jenkabid. Appreciate that. Angelimation, stop spamming. I got Yumi Nikki. What do you think of that game? I heard about that. I heard it was good. I didn't play it though. I don't know anything about it, unfortunately. What was I gonna? I was gonna show more of these test levels that I made. 'Cause I made a whole bunch of them. I made all of these. We got Blocks, Camel, Chimney. Chimney, oh, I know what I'm gonna show. I'm gonna show my stress test because I found a bug. I found a bug today before stream went live. So I'm gonna open this one called Variety. If your game would become super popular and a lot of people would ask for console ports, would you consider porting your game to a popular game engine for easier console ports? No, I would not port it to another engine. I would port it myself. I think that I would be able to figure it out. So Love2D is built off of like C++. I think I would be able to figure out some way to port it myself. It would be hard. It would be hard. It's not something that someone inexperienced with like hard, difficult tech problems would be able to figure out, but I think that if I really tried, and I might need to commission some people or maybe hire a firm to help me with some of the details that are more experienced with that stuff, but I would port it myself through Love2D. No different. I know Love2D doesn't really natively support consoles, but I do know how to make things work, is what I'm saying. I think I can figure it out. coding was less about code and more about structure and system design. Now I understand why computer science classes emphasize so much on system design, SDLCs, testing. Yeah, it is. Executing your, or sorry, there's two phases. There's the design and planning phase of your program, and then there's the execution phase. And the execution phase is its own skill, and then planning things out. So, like, the planning phase could mean anything. You have to plan this whole file. Like, I planned out what functions and what features I wanted to go in this load.lua file, and then executing it was its own challenge. And it's just a separate set of skills. If Balatro can do it, then it's certainly possible. Is Balatro on console? Because if it is, then yeah, that's my proof of concept. That's all the proof that I need. And that is just to be clear, porting to console is very hard. Balatro is on every platform. Cool. That is good to know, because if they did it, then I could. Porting to console is very, very hard. It's not easy. You have to get a special device, I think. You have to get special permissions, special license, and the build process is specialized. You have to run all your code through a specialized process. It is not easy. There's a lot of security concerns, a lot of policy requirements. It is a burdensome, tedious process to get a game running on console. But I do think I could figure it out. I do think I could. It wouldn't be something I would recommend for someone who's inexperienced, though. And honestly, I'm kind of inexperienced. I'm experienced when it comes to difficult tech problems. I was a software developer for a long time before I was doing like this sort of stuff full time, and I solved some very, very hard, deep tech problems, and I think I could do the same thing again. It would not be easy. It would take a lot of time, and it would be hard. But I do think I'm confident I could figure it out. The kit is like $500. That sounds about right. But the thing is, it's funny though. Like $500, that is expensive, but that is a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of time, effort, money, and energy that would go into me developing a console port of this game. Because if I could pay someone $5,000 to create a console port, that would be cheap. It would cost like $50,000 to create a console port. So I would. And honestly, I'm dead serious. If the game comes out and is popular, and someone offers me $50,000, like someone offers to make a console port for $50,000, that's honestly worth considering, because it would take so much time and effort. It would be so hard and so cumbersome, so much work and maintenance and difficulty to get it working on console. Spending $50,000 to have that process done for me so I could do something else, it might be worth it. There's an opportunity cost to doing it. If I publish the game on console and it takes me 3 months, let's say, 3 months of work to do the console port, that's 3 months that I'm not spending on something else that could be making money. That's expensive. And also $50K, that's me estimating. If I had to guess, it's more. Shall we ask an AI? What is your estimate if a game had a fully functional PC port? How much would it cost to develop a Nintendo Switch port of the game and get it published? Rough estimates. If I were... give me rough estimates for if I were to hire a firm to do this work for me. I have absolutely no idea what it's going to say, and honestly, I don't really trust what it's going to say, but I do think it'll give us some kind of ballpark to get the conversation started off of. Some engines like Unity already handle console ports more easily, but you still need the money. They handle the console port, but there is still more to it. Porting to the Nintendo ecosystem, especially now that we're firmly in Nintendo Switch 2, single buy-in, porting house, free bulk, simple port, 15K to 40K mid-scale port, yeah, here we go. So this is its estimate here. If you were using Unity Unreal, where it already supports that, this is more like what we're talking about, because my framework does not support console. Holy, I know. You guys need to realize that when you hire people to do work for you, especially when it's specialized, difficult, challenging work in the tech space, I genuinely feel like this is accurate. I estimated 50K, and that wasn't even enough. It would be more like this if I were to hire it out. That's why I would need to do it myself, by the way. I don't want to spend $150,000 paying someone else to make a console port for my game when I can do it myself. I know how to do it. It would be very, very hard. It would take me a long, long time. How did Balatro do it? They definitely just paid someone $150,000 to do it, because Balatro made so much money that you can just pay someone to do it. It's not that big of a deal. Think about how much money how much money did Balatro make? Well, why a lot of indie devs take a while to port their games, they need to be successful first. Yeah, exactly. You need a lot of money to do it. It's so true. It has been an astronomical success. 5.8 million copies sold across all platforms. Currently, industry estimates $66 million. $66 million. Impact on the publisher. PlayStack. I'm so happy for them. I'm so happy for Balatro. That's amazing. These numbers are so good. So that answers your question is, if you get even a marginal level of success, 66 million, like this is a breakout enormous hit. 66 million. Let's say your game received 1% of that attention and it made $500,000. Well, that's how you pay for it. 66 million. Now, yeah, that sounds about right. That game really took the world by storm, and that's too much, man. Yeah, it is. The world is big though, and there's a lot of people. When we think about, like, did it say how many sales it got? 5.8 million copies. That is just so cool. Hey, how are you? I'm doing good, thank you. The engines handle the code part, the testing, and getting your game approved with Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony is a whole other story. Yeah, there's a process. There's a process involved. But I'm very happy to know that I wasn't that far off base when I said 50K earlier. That was an underestimate, but it's within the ballpark. It's within the ballpark. So hopefully that answers why, like, console support for indies is such a big step. And it's not a step that I'm planning to do until well after release. And actually, going off of that, developing for mobile is the same thing. We can go ahead. I'll go ahead and ask the AI the same question that I asked before about how much would it cost, but change it to mobile, like iPhone. I'll say specifically iPhone. And iOS port of the game. I'm going to guess this is going to be not much different. I'm going to guess it's going to be very similar. Slightly cheaper. A little bit. But not by much. It's like half the price. So, and these are rough, you know. This is the same. I love that it remembers the context from this conversation, by the way. It remembers that I just asked this question. And it also knows that I'm a Love2D user because I use this. I use Gemini once in a while. Love can run on mobile, can't it? It can. But it's still a monumental task to get it working. And so what I was going to mention is, when my game is ready and available on Mac, Windows, and Linux, I am going to try to port the game to mobile. And I say try because it's a very difficult process that I've done before. I've published Love2D games on mobile. I published Necrozone, and before that I published Tropical Spirit, which is like the same game, but I know how it works, and I know how to do it. And even me knowing what that process is like, exactly what I need to do, I'm still really hesitant because I know how many challenges are involved with going through with that process. I would do it myself. I would not need to fork over 50K to get a mobile port because I know how to do it. And also, as I'm developing the game, I'm kind of thinking ahead. I am kind of thinking ahead to, if this game was available on non-PC platforms, would this still work? And if the answer is no, I do it a different way. I do still think ahead. Do I use AI to make script? Yeah, I do. For some tasks, for some debugging, for certain mundane, mainly the mundane tasks that I don't want to do myself, which is a lot of them. Duford Town, oh my gosh, yeah. I'm a big fan of the soundtrack. It's hotly contested though. Which soundtrack sounds better? Is it the original Game Boy Advance soundtrack, or is it the remake soundtrack on 3DS? Put your votes below if you think it's the original or if it's the remake, because they both have their benefits. Do I actually read the Discord channels? I read the general chat, and then I only read the other ones when I get pinged. But I want people to ping me. Like, if you guys want to ping me in Discord, go for it, and then I'll come check it out. I'm your big fan. Thank you, Ender. Appreciate that. Now, this is kind of random, but do you have any tips to make amazing devlogs for someone who's never made a devlog before? I'm asking because, like, you're the person who inspired me to start a long-term game. I appreciate that. The way I recommend is start simple and easy, and also keep in mind that when you spend time working on a video, that is time spent not working on your game. So you have to be careful that if you're making videos, it's not taking too much time away from your game, because that's kind of a problem I was experiencing during my TikTok phase, my TikTok days, I should say. TikTok phase sounds way worse. When I was posting videos on TikTok, I would make progress on the game specifically to make content out of it, and that's how I was able to post like every week, and I was able to grow on TikTok really fast. But I burned out so fast because that progress wasn't actually meaningful. It was all this like very artificial surface level stuff that I could film. It was all this progress that looked good on camera, like on screen recording, but it wasn't actually progressing me farther in the game, because the truth is, when you're developing a game, a lot of the progress that you make is invisible performance, bug fixing, mundane junk. Just setting things up, organizing your code, rewriting old code so that it runs better. It's so much stuff that's not actually progress. It's just maintenance and making things work. It's very, very time consuming. And what I'm getting at is that if you are trying to put out like a monthly video, for example, that's a good goal to have, but also getting a month's worth of game development progress to show is not easy. And when I was like rewriting my code engine with like all of this code, when I was rewriting my engine code, I wasn't posting any videos at all at the time. I was just focusing on that because it just felt so hard to make content out of engine level invisible things that it was just hard to talk about. And I talked about it a bit in my recent Z-axis video. I think that video does a good job of making it interesting, but that still required a ton of progress that took a lot more than a month to show off. Like that Z-axis video, that the amount of work that went into the coding side of things to get that functionality working was immense. And then the amount of time to get the video like finished and out was also immense. And what I recommend is make sure you frame this as a long-term thing. Don't expect that you will be able to post devlogs and get a really good game out the door within a couple years. I've been doing this my whole life. Look up Game Maker Crab on YouTube. I've been doing this since I was 12, and I still have not published a commercial game. I'm still working on it, but I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at game development, and I'm pretty good at making videos. So I've set myself up nicely, is what I mean. I've played the long game. I did the long con. But if you quit after 2 years, it's not going to work out. So it's important to balance what you're working on so that you don't burn out, because you're only going to fail if you give up at some point. So just I like recommending short, simple, easy devlogs because you're less likely to burn out that way. And even if you make short, simple, easy devlogs and they're kind of lame, they're not very interesting, kind of crappy, each one is going to get better than the last one. You're going to get better. You're going to remember what parts of the video worked and which ones didn't, which parts were cringy. You're going to make a lot of cringy stuff, by the way. That's one of my hardest parts, is that like I keep making stuff and then I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh, that's not good. That's so cringy. I don't want to post that, and I just don't post it. But you need to post it. Or like you don't need to post it, but like if you want to make videos, just post your videos. Make it no low effort or like no low commitment. It's no big thing. Just post your stuff and improve over time. Build your skills, and don't plan for success in 2 years. Plan for success in 10 years with small successes along the way. I don't want you to expect that you're gonna have all your dreams come true within 3 or 4 years. It's gonna take your whole life. I've been working on this since I was 12, and I'm almost 30. I'm gonna be 30 in a month. That's old. I'm an old man. And I've been doing this for so long, and I still haven't finished. I'm still not done. But I'm so excited at the progress I've made because I think ahead. I'm gonna keep doing this, by the way. What are my games gonna look like in 5 years? What are my videos gonna be like? What are my live streams gonna be like in 10 years? I'm gonna be so much better than I am right now. It's so exciting. So I want other people to feel that excitement that I feel, where it's like, I saw all this progress in the past 10 years. That makes me excited for the next 10 years. Happy early birthday. Thank you. Appreciate that. Do you have any advice for writing game lore quickly? Game lore. I'm actually not very good with game lore because this game doesn't really have any lore. Really, my advice for lore is to get your general ideas in place, make the game, and then after the game is like in a really solid place, shift and morph the lore around the game. One of the big problems I see with development is people who design a perfect story, the perfect lore, the perfect setting, the perfect anything, the perfect art, the perfect, everything's perfect. But it's not, because you're making a game. The game has to be perfect, and then the assets suit the game. So if you're making your assets or your lore or your story or your writing before the game is there, you're making a mistake. It's not perfect because the perfect lore suits the game. So my lore keeps changing because the game keeps changing. The game's changing so much, the lore keeps changing, because if the lore stayed the exact same as when I first started on this game, it wouldn't make any sense because the scope was different. It took place in different areas and the goals were different. It just would be so wildly out there. So my advice is to go into it with general ideas, like what do you want it to be about, like what general story beats do you want to happen, but also go into it with the idea that you're going to discover different ideas along the way. Nothing is set in stone. I'm also not a fan of like game design documents. A lot of people spend time making a game design document. We're going to get everything on paper and ready to go before we even start. Don't do that. Start making your game, make a prototype with filler, dumb, gross looking assets just to experiment. And once you have your prototype, then you can start looking at the design document and thinking, okay, well, maybe this aspect didn't work, or I like this aspect, and really focus on the mechanics. Get everything really nice in terms of how it feels to play, and then make your lore and other supplemental decisions after that. What if it's a story-driven game? Same thing. I'm serious. I like, people play games. They don't play stories. If you want to just write a story, then write a story. And by the way, if you write a story and publish a story, that's awesome experience. I think that would be really, really good. But I don't think that you should write a story and then make a game. I think it's the wrong order. I think you should make a game. Or, you know, if you say, I want to make a game that's story-driven, start making the game and implement the story as you're making the game. The game is going to take you a long time to make. You have time to write the story while you're making the game. You don't need to write the story and then make the game. You should start making the game with the story beats in mind so that you can start building it out. And then as you start building it out, you might realize, okay, this art style that I had in my head, maybe that's not quite right, and we're going to shift it more in this direction. And well, if the art style is changing, that's going to change this character, and it's going to change this event, it's going to change all of these different things about the story, and then suddenly your lore that was perfect, no longer perfect, because there's some kind of constraint. People don't realize that when you're making a game, sometimes there are constraints. Sometimes there's performance issues. This happens a lot, for example. People will write a story that involves a giant battle, a giant, awesome, epic battle involving 1,000 armies fighting on a giant battlefield, and it's huge, there's giant explosions, it's amazing, it's a big spectacle. But then they implement it, and the performance can't handle it. So we have a tech restraint. We have this big story about all these armies fighting, and the big climactic scene we can't even do. So what are we gonna do about that? You better fix it. You better find a more perfect story that suits the game, because this idea that you had ain't gonna work. So much Pokemon. I mean, there's a lot of Pokemon in my playlist. I'm a big fan of the Pokemon franchise. Have I ever tried Pico 8? I haven't tried it myself, but I did play the Celeste Pico 8 game, and I've watched lots of videos about Pico 8 because I think it's Lua based, isn't it? It's like Lua coding. So I think I would fit right in if I were to try it out. Your hair length looks amazing, or looks great. For some reason, I feel like growing my hair out. Thank you. It is quite long. I need a haircut. I do need a haircut because it's kind of like unkempt at this point, and also like my bangs are long. But thank you for saying that. I have an enemy idea, a little gross. You know that insect that make a ball and crush their other insects like a ball. That's a cool idea. I love that idea. That's pretty clever. I feel like I've seen that in something. What did I see that in? Oh, that's in Hollow Knight. Yeah, there's a boss in Hollow Knight that's a dung beetle, and it's really good. The Dung Defender is what he's called. Should we do the stress test? Oh yeah. Thank you for bringing me back to reality. The whole point of me pointing this out is that I have this map here that has all these like different scenarios of different formations for these blocks that are kind of trying to stretch the limits. These are really basic over here. But then over here we have some of these like angles out. Up here I have a thin strip. Here I have some stacked cases. This one goes off screen a little bit. Everything looks good so far. This is a short wall leading into a narrow vertical strip. It's pretty good. Have I tried VR headsets? Yes, I have a MetaQuest 2. Because I don't know if you remember, when MetaQuest 2, like they were cheap. Here it is, I found it. So I was running this stress test earlier. I was like playing around with this, and I found this spot right here. And I'm like, okay, this seems fine. Everything looks good. I was jumping up on it, and I can get up here. Everything's fine. And then I try to go over here. Something's wrong. I can't jump up here. Something's like messed up. Check it out. The math is wrong. It extended this collider down too far. Why it's called a stress test? Because it's meant to be a bunch of very intense scenarios that stress the code out. I know that's kind of a weird way to phrase it, but it's sort of like if you were making ropes. Let's say you were making ropes, you would want to test that your ropes are strong by testing them. You would stress out the rope really, really hard. You would like pull on it and stress out the rope to make sure that it can handle that stress. Because you wouldn't want to sell a rope to someone and then for that rope to snap right away because it can't handle the stress. So you do a stress test to make sure that it works. And this is the same sort of thing. We're just trying to stress out the engine to find some scenarios where it breaks. And that's how I found this, is I had this is kind of a simple scenario though. It's just a stacked set of slabs, and this collider here extends down too far. So the math is screwed up. Inspire enemies at real-life insects. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like I was saying, Hollow Knight did that, and I think it's awesome. It's fun to play through Hollow Knight, and then you see the different characters, and you're like, oh, that's a dung beetle, that's a praying mantis. I think that's fun. Anything that can kind of connect players' own real-world knowledge with the world, because it also provides context. When you see a praying mantis, you kind of know what praying mantises are like. They slash at you, and so it kind of gives you context for what they do. Am I using Winfield? No, I'm using my own custom physics wrapper. It's really similar to Winfield, though. The name of the live is testing the level editor. The thing we did is talk. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That is always how it goes, though, right? Is that the stream gets a title, and then only for a portion of it do I talk about the real thing. But that is the main thing. I also have this other... So this is one bug I need to fix at some point, and I also need to fix another one. I have this other map here called Stress, and this one's actually bigger. But this one is a true stress test because check this out. We're lagging. This map lags. So if I turn on the frames per second monitor, look, we're only getting 44, 30. That's so bad. So this map has really bad performance, really low frame rate for some reason. But if I go to this map, we're fine. We're back to 60. So then this map, this is the variety map. This one's fine. And then back to the stress test. Whoops. The stress test map. Excuse me. Sorry. So this map specifically has low frame rate. Maybe a memory leak? I don't know. I don't think it's a memory leak because the lag kicks in the moment the map loads. Because if I go to this map, perfectly fine. No issue. I go to this map. Immediately it's down to 40s. So that makes me think it's not a stress test. Or sorry, that makes me think it's not... Sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's not a memory leak. Sorry, that's what I was thinking. I don't think it's a memory leak because of that. Will Moonshire have a FPS cap? Nope. I don't think it's going to have an FPS cap. If I had one... Well, maybe you guys can help me with that. Is there a reason I would need to put one in? Because I think that I should cap it at whatever the player's computer can handle. And if their computer's able to jump up to... Or actually, here, let me take a step back. The frame rate, the max frame rate actually comes from your monitor. Because you can have a monitor that has like 240 frames per second, 240 hertz. And then you'd be able to get 240 frames per second. But you could plug that monitor into like an old crappy computer, right? And I don't think that old crappy computer would be capable of rendering 240 frames every second. So it would need to be a double. It would need to be a double thing. You would need a good computer that's capable of rendering that many frames, and then a monitor that supports actually outputting that many frames. So maybe I do want some way to cap the frame rate. Maybe it should be a setting where... Because what would happen if someone put in a crappy computer towards a really high-end monitor? Would it just not work? Sounds like my gaming workstation. Sounds right. I understand. You should make the corners of the shadows of the grass be curved. Yeah, I agree. Because, yeah, right now, it's just like a sharp edge. It looks good on these walls, but on the, like, the grass ones, it really doesn't look good. Yeah, like right here. That doesn't look right at all. Doesn't it put unnecessary stress on your system running something at unlimited FPS instead of limiting to refresh rate or similar? That's subjective. What is unnecessary? Because there are people out there that say, well, I don't want to make assumptions. Some people would say that 120 frames per second is unnecessary. Let's just cap it at 60. But there are other people out there that love playing games at 120 hertz. They love it. And switching to 60, they can notice the difference and it feels bad. So what might be unnecessary to you and me might be necessary to someone else. For example, if I had... This is a common one. If you have to choose between, do you want 4K or 60 frames per second? You can only choose one. That's a common problem that you have to experience. Like with my PS5, I played through Expedition 33, and that was my option. I could choose 4K 30 FPS or 1080p at 60 FPS. So, people have different preferences. In fact, most people I talk to seem to prefer 30 FPS 4K, but I hate that because I really want 60 FPS. I would take a 720p game at 60 FPS over 30 FPS 4K. I really want high frame rate, but I also don't care, like 120 frames, that doesn't matter to me. 60 is high enough. What I'm getting at is that different people have different levels of what's unnecessary. And even though I think that 240 hertz is unnecessary, some other people might not feel that way. And sure, like 500 frames per second is unnecessary. Humans can't see that many frames, or 1,000. Let's say 1,000 frames. Let's set an arbitrary cap of 1,000 frames per second, because that's just not necessary. You can only notice changes up to around 500 frames per second. Yeah, that would be an option. That would be an option. I think I might wait until that problem presents itself. That's why a lot of games let users set their FPS manually. Very few modern games look good at 30 FPS. The N64 looks fine for most parts since it was built for 30 FPS games, but anything more recent just looks bad. I completely agree. I really completely agree. When I go back and play a smooth, like a GameCube game at 60 FPS, I think it looks amazing compared to a 30 FPS modern game. I think Mario Sunshine at 60 FPS looks way, way better than any modern Mario game that runs at 30 FPS. For example, I think that Paper Mario Thousand Year Door on GameCube runs at 60 FPS, looks way better than Paper Mario Switch, which runs at 30 FPS. Even though, like, if you just take one frame at a time, the Switch version looks a lot better because it's HD and they put a lot more detail into it. It looks really nice. But when the game runs at half the number of frames, man, it's just hard for my eyeballs to look past that. But there are other people out there that don't care. Like a friend of mine. A friend of mine played through the new Paper Mario game and thought it was awesome. And honestly, I'm jealous. I'm jealous that there are people out there that don't really care about frame rate as much as, like, the fidelity. Because like this game, Expedition 33, when you boot up the PS5 version of Expedition 33 for the first time, the default setting is 4K 30 FPS. And it looks horrible, in my opinion. I think it looks bad at 4K 30 FPS. And you go into the menu, you switch it over to performance mode, where it's 1080p 60 FPS, smooth as butter. It's smooth as butter. It's amazing. It looks and plays so much better, in my opinion. I need to keep prefacing that, is that it's an opinion thing. I respect anyone else who feels differently. They wouldn't have made it the default setting if people didn't feel that way. Certainly there are people out there that prefer 4K 30. But I just don't. Is the FPS locked? On my game, no. But if you're talking about Expedition 33, it is, yeah. Some of these shadows of the wall are overlapping. Yeah, I noticed that too. Like right here, I think that in this case it makes sense for them to get darker. Where it doesn't is there's some other spots. I'm gonna see if I can find it. Man, like here, look at this. Look at this little blip. So the reason you see this blip down here, this little extra shadow blip, is because this rectangular shadow for the narrow strip is merging with this horizontal shadow, and it creates this little overlap section. So that's just a small little bug, small little quirk. I noticed that it's happening here too. It's probably gonna happen anywhere that you have connecting peninsulas like that. I don't have any PC. Can I learn Lua in Termux? I don't think I know what Termux is, but you can do Lua in a browser. Yeah, you definitely can. How are you on time? I got 10 more minutes. Could the problem be the collision math? Well, it is kind of like that. The problem is that the shadow is very, very simple right now. The way I calculate the shadow for these ledges is so simple. All that I do is I take this green box and I draw a shadow right where that green box is. Just a little bit bigger. So The green box is the collider. It's the solid part of the wall. And I literally just take that same bounding box, increase it slightly, and then I draw a shadow in that space. So, when we have that scenario over here, where we have this wall going up against this wall, those two walls touch, like these edges meet right here. But since the shadow extends slightly out a little bit farther, it has that overlap right in this meeting point. So the solution is probably not worth doing, but the solution is to have some like extra logic in here that says if there's a meeting point between two slabs, do not extend the shadow out past that point. But that's not a clean solution because we do still need the shadow to extend out past this point on up here. It's only right here at this meeting point. So it'd be kind of annoying. It'd be kind of hard to fix that. That's why I'm saying I might not even fix it. How to read and write a JSON file. Sure. A JSON file is just data. A JSON file is not code. That's the big takeaway. Is that what we see here is not code. It is just information. The only thing, it's just a list of properties and values for those properties. And it's the same, and like, even though it gets a little bit more complex down here, it's still the same thing. We have the property and the value being set to that property. And then down here, we have the property is named blocks, and the value being set to that property is a list. So whenever you have square brackets like this, it's a list of data. So right here, up here, we have single points of data, just numbers, being assigned to these values, but you can assign a list of values. You could have a list of numbers. In this case, we have a list of objects. So an object can have its own set of values. So here, blocks is being set to a list of objects. Each object contains an X value, a Y value, a Z value, and so on. So that's how a JSON value is written and read. I'm using JSON for my game because JSON is an industry standard. When I worked at Microsoft, I used JSON files a lot. Again, it's not code, it's just data. For example, I have a lot of translation files. Well, actually, the translation files are something different. Translation files are really... Oh, no, they are JSON files. Never mind. I do use JSON. My old translation system were different. Translation is something that you have to do in all software, not just games. So this idea of having a translation file using JSON, it's kind of an industry standard. I'm sure there's actually like an LCL file, or maybe there's some XML format that's more standardized than JSON. But JSON is so widely used in the tech industry that having the standard is very convenient, because now when I work with localizers, if I work with someone in the industry, they're already familiar with this format. JSON is pretty common. I'm sure that there are some even more common formats than just JSON, because one of the downsides of JSON is that it's very rigid. The format is completely rigid. There's you can have a flexible number of values, but it has a very clear like quotation naming scheme. And sometimes you might want a little YAML. Yeah, I remember when I worked at Microsoft, I did have YAML files. I remember doing that. So I imagine that what happens, I think what actually ends up happening is that the YAML files is some kind of like XML, some kind of human readable file that the translators or the localizers work on. And then when they finish the YAML file, they hand it off to the engineers. The engineers compile it into some kind of data, either JSON, maybe there's some script that's able to read directly from YAML. In my case, I think that we compiled it from YAML into XML or JSON, and then we read directly from the XML. But it's all the same, you know, it doesn't really make any difference. Or you can even make your own JSON encode decoder in Lua, but that can be harder to do. I already kind of did that. My JSON encoder is custom written. So if I wanted to have my own format, for example, my levels are these .json files like I've been showing. But for a while, I was considering, what if I made my own file type? I was thinking about making a .shire type. So let's say that I had new file. I'm going to call this test.shire. Okay. And then nothing wrong with me doing this. In fact, literally my code would be able to handle this. It wouldn't have any problem doing this. Because JSON, it's just a text file. When my code reads this file, all it does is it takes all of this text, turns it into a Lua string, and then it parses that string into Lua data. So it doesn't matter what the file type, it says .json, it doesn't matter. It's just a text file. The reason why, and that's what JSON is. JSON is literally just a text file that's formatted in a way that's expected. If you have a JSON file, you always know it's going to have this like quotation mark data format. It always does. But if it's a .txt file, you don't always know that. So I could invent my own structure, .shire. And let's say that something about JSON didn't work well, or there was a special type of data that wasn't easily supported in JSON. I could just drop JSON entirely and make my own parser that reads this string, converts it into Lua data like it already does, and does it that way. You use AI, I'm angry now. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I use it for some things. Is the game gonna be moddable? Yes, it is gonna be moddable. That's a big goal, because when it's moddable, it's easier for me to make content, and it's easier for others to make content. When it's easier for me to make content, then sorry, I'm getting this backwards. When it's easier for other people to make content, it's easy for me to make content. So all this tooling that I'm making to make it like moddable, it's for my benefit as well. What is the .shire file? It's just an example. I was just making a point that JSON is, it doesn't mean anything. JSON just means that you can expect it to look like this. But in the end, it's just a text file. If you change it to .shire, it's still just a text file. And my code could read from this file the exact same way. It doesn't matter if it's called .json or called .shire. But the reason why using .json is nice is because when other people see .json, that's an industry standard thing, and people will know what that means, and they'll know how to read this very clearly. Whereas .shire is a made-up thing that I came up with, and right now, like, this format looks the exact same. You could read it fine, but imagine I converted it into something different. Or what if I wanted to take it even further? What if I wanted to make it so this wasn't human readable at all? What if the final version of these map files, like this Shire file, what if it was just a compiled series of data like this? Because, you know, if you ever look up like this, open anyway. Look at this. This is what a binary looks like when you open it up. It's a bunch of weird, gross data. And I could make it so that my Shire files are formatted like this, where only a computer would be able to read this data properly. Like it's not able to render any of this data right now because it's just ones and zeros. And I could make it so that my Shire files are something similar, where it's just a bunch of data that's really compressed. And if you do this, by the way, if you make it like this, it's going to be a smaller file size. So if my goal was, I want to make my mods very small and compact and easily distributed, if that was my goal, I probably would go towards a direction like this, where it's able to compact it into the most computer-dense version possible. Because supporting English words and stuff, this is all for our human benefit. But computers are so complex, they can read ones and zeros in the most compressed, efficient way. You can make the file sizes much smaller if you turn it into some like weird abstract data like this. But I don't think that's important, because like this JSON file, how big is this? Let's see how big one of these JSON files are. Let's do the stress one, because it's a big one. It's 9 kilobytes. 9 kilobytes. So even if it was 10 times bigger, we're talking 1 millibyte. No, we're talking 100 kilobytes. We're talking nothing. It would have to be 100 times bigger for it to even reach 1 megabyte, which is so small. It's not worth doing this because you're losing the human readability. You're gaining, you're improving the size, but you're losing the human readability. It's not worth it. A PS2 memory card can handle 1,000 of them. Wow. Dude, that is so sad, isn't it? Like, those PS2 memory cards were like a few megabytes. It was brutal. I heard of the 64KB game velocity. I have not heard about that. That's really interesting. Can you tell me about that? Because I'm a big fan of small file sizes and compact games. I'm a big fan of efficiency. So if there's some kind of movement or mantra going around about doing that, I'm all for it. Best way to learn writing code. Are YouTube tutorials viable, or would you recommend learning it the traditional way? I would recommend starting with tutorials and get a feel for what it feels like to code. But keep in mind that when you follow tutorials, you're basically just like following along. It's like a Bob Ross painting. If you were asking me, how do you paint? I would say follow along with some painting tutorials, because when you do that, you'll get a feel for what it's like to paint. But eventually, you're going to have to stop following tutorials and make your own custom things. And it's going to be really, really hard. It's going to be hard to paint your own stuff. It's going to be hard to code your own stuff or make your own games, whatever it is that you're working on. But the tutorials are helpful for getting a feel for like the foundations, like the terminology, just like how to actually do things. But then to internalize it, to get skilled at coding, you have to take the training wheels off and do it yourself. It's hard. It's going to be super challenging, but that's where the learning comes from, is overcoming the challenge. It's really easy to follow along with tutorials, and you can glean a lot of information, a lot of starter, like foundational skills from that, but only up to a certain point. You really have to like stop and do your own things, your own projects, your own little tasks, simple little things. Overcoming those challenges on your own is a really great skill, and that's where the learning comes from. It's tough, it's hard. Like, don't get me wrong. It's very easy to follow tutorials. It's a lot harder to break away and do stuff on your own, but that's what you gotta do. Rescue Squad, getting ready for work. I'm actually getting ready to turn off the stream for the day because it is past noon. I'm getting ready to go to my MOONSHIRE McDonald's Monday. But thank you so much for the awesome stream today. It went so good. I was able to show off some of my tile set stuff and the stress test stuff. It's looking really good. I'm excited about the direction of this game, and I'm really happy to have all of you folks in chat supporting me and chatting with me. It's been so nice getting all your ideas and feedback. It really is such a nice thing. So thank you all for your support. I will be back next week for another MOONSHIRE Monday. Thank you, Rescue Squad, DevSnip, Dairin, Bokos, Enderastra, Yolvin, Tradex, Omatsidi, Wolf, 54720, DevSnip, Ducky, Weltrill, Yee Yee, Butterfly, Rethanon. Thank you so much for being here, and I will be back next week. Bye, everyone.